session of CaN, Gallant Current Affairs and News Analysis. So today we will be discussing the Hindu newspapers of October 15th and 16th. I have with me about 9 topics today. First we will be dealing about the Iron Dome technology. Like we know, Iron Dome technology is actually used by Israel against Hamas and it has been in use for quite a long time. So we will be discussing how this Iron Dome technology works and how it actually failed to intercept the recent Hamas attack and how it actually became a surprise attack. Then we will be discussing about the laws of war as per the UN Charter. What all are the laws or what are the humanitarian kind of ways which a country should actually consider before going on to a full-term war. Then the world needs to stop taking water for granted. Today is October 16, it is actually called as World Food Day. So in that related a particular theme has been given out, and based on this theme this article has actually shown up in the newspaper. Then closing the gender pay gap in the workforce. This is again similar or dealing with this men and women wage gap that is still existing in the society. Then study required for the number of UAVs. It depends upon the defense sector to increase or decrease the number of what are the present requirements of the number of unmanned aerial vehicles that are required for the defense force. Then tradable green credits, the concept of tradable green credits, and now then 2036 Olympic host bid. Our Prime Minister Narendra Modi has actually bid for hosting the Olympic in 2036. Then Red Fort host India's Maiden Art and bid for traditional medicines on WHO list. So we will be looking at this 9 articles today. First of all, we will be telling about this Iron Dome technology. So in this thing which I need to tell you, this Iron Dome technology is actually developed by not Israel alone but with US and Israel. This is a short range kind of missile system. So in this we will be actually discussing about how this kind of Iron Dome technology actually works. Now suppose this is Gaza. This area is actually the Gaza Strip area. This is the Gaza area and this is the Israel area. All these areas there is kind of settlement area. These are the settlements. There is the radar. This is the radar. This is the interceptor. This is the interceptor, and then there is actually the rocket launch system. Where is the Iron Dome technology rocket launch system, this Iron Dome system. So the Gaza, the Hamas is actually launching rockets. Now as I have told you, this is the settlement area and all these are actually inhabited area in between. So there is actually particular launch. One launch is actually trajecting towards the settlement and then the other is actually trajecting towards the inhabited area. So what this Iron Dome system will actually do is that it actually tracks the trajectory or the tracks the rocket which is actually going towards the settlement area. So this is actually traject this and destroys this particular rocket which is actually going towards the inhabited area. But this particular rocket, the second rocket, this is the first rocket, it was going towards the inhabited areas. The Iron Dome technology successfully intercepted it and destroyed it. But the second is actually going towards an inhabited area. Now it's very inhabitant. The thing is that they don't want to waste any more rockets, so they just let it go. The Iron Dome technology will not intercept. Even if it finds a rocket, it does not destroy the target because it is going to an inhabited area. So this Iron Dome technology actually can track, intercept and destroy the oncoming rocket. So this rocket is launched. So what they will do, this Iron Dome technology, there is this rocket system, they will release the rocket system, it will go and it will blast here, thus successfully destroying the rocket that has been actually launched by Hamas. They are actually launching the Iron Dome rockets from here, and what they will do, the rockets goes here and then blast near this particular rocket, thus destroying the target on the spot there. So that is how this Iron Dome technology actually works. So I hope you actually got a clear idea of how this Iron Dome technology works. So here you can actually see this is the Gaza, this is how this Iron Dome technology works. There is a particular rocket here. This, if targeting towards civilian area, this will actually go and blast in particular nearby this, thus destroying that particular rocket system. So you have the enemy rockets here, the radar systems here, this is the control unit and the launcher missile. This is a particular rocket system that is actually coming from the enemy, and thus when this launcher fires the missile, it actually goes the missile and explodes near the rocket, thus successfully destroying the rocket. So that is how this Iron Dome technology actually works. Now in a single stand they consist of about 7 rockets or 7 missiles. 7 missiles are actually present in this iron dome. 7 missiles are present in this iron dome in a particular instance, and it takes a lot of time for this refueling or the remissiling as well. So, it takes a particular time. So, in the first instance when the Hamas actually gone, it was in 2001 when there was actually an incident of war broke out between Hamas and Israel. That time this iron dome technology was actually very successful, and all the countries were talking about the purchase and the management of the iron dome technology as well. But now Hamas has actually found a particular weakness within this iron dome technology. The thing is that, as I have told you, it can handle 7 missiles. At a particular time period, this can actually hold only 7 missiles, and it actually takes a lot of time to refill the next set of missiles as well. So, when particularly a lot of rockets and missile system is launched together. Now, particularly if that Hamas is going to actually launch about 20 rockets, at a time it can actually only detect about 7 missiles. So, it can actually launch 7 counter missiles. But if it goes beyond 7, the iron dome system starts to malfunction because it can't handle all these missiles incoming a lot of data too much. The thing is that if it goes to 20 itself, the iron dome cannot manage to handle it. But the Hamas actually launched about 2,200 missile system, because of which the iron dome system was actually not able to successfully intercept the majority or 90% of this, 90% of the missiles, and because of which the iron dome malfunctioned, and this actually entered into cities, thus creating a lot of issues for Israel, because everything this actually took as a surprise attack. And now we know the weakness of iron dome system. It can handle only a particular missiles, a particular number of missiles. If it exceeds the number of missile system, the iron dome system actually cannot manage this particular task. So, that is one of the weakness that has been actually given out by the iron dome system. This particular iron dome system has been actually developed by the Rafael Advanced Defense System of US. You might feel that Rafael is related to defense, but no, this Rafael Advanced Defense System belongs to the US company. So, this is how the iron dome system actually works. So, as I have told you, iron dome is actually a short range anti-rocket, anti-mortar and anti-artillery system. It can actually intercept range about 2.5 to about 43 miles, and was developed by the Rafael Advanced Defense System of Israel according to the US Congressional Research Services. Now, the iron dome's targeting systems and the radar's first track of trajectory of income projectiles are designed to fire this Tamir interceptor. The interceptors of this are called Tamir. Interceptors are actually called Tamir. Israel has about 4 layers of defense system. The first layer is actually the iron dome system. The first layer is actually iron dome system. The next layer is actually David sling. The third is arrow 2 and arrow 3. So, this iron dome actually I told you is actually short range. The David sling is actually a medium range, a low to Tamir range. Then they have arrow 2 and arrow 3, which are actually much more long range. So, if you are looking at Indian angle, the Israel has been trying to actually give away iron dome kind of system to India. They have been actually using a lot to give away iron dome to India. But iron dome is actually not particularly very useful in kind of the Indian terrain or Indian war chronology. Only if there is actually the militants going, the Pakistani terrorists actually going to walk in directly through the border and such, only then we can actually use this iron dome kind of technology. But what India is actually interested in the arrow 2 and arrow 3 model, which are actually long range, which are like arrow 2 goes to upper atmosphere and arrow 3 are expo atmospheric. So, these are both what India is actually interested in purchasing. But as per the Israel and the USA, both these are in the development stages only, and their trial run or testing has not been done up to the mark. So, because of it they couldn't actually give away this arrow 2 and arrow 3 to India as well. So, this is what called the iron dome system. This has been recently a small addition. So, you need to know iron dome system are what are the 4 layers of defense system for Israel. First is the iron dome, followed by the David sling, then arrow 2 and arrow 3. These are the 4 layers of defense system, especially in the case of Israel. So, that is what is talking about this iron dome technology. Then we have the laws of war. Now, this is actually given via the UN Charter. In this case particularly we need to look about 2 laws regarding the war. There is the first one, there is the second one. Under what condition or when can countries use force? When can I actually use force? So, that is what, when can I use force? This is what is actually stated in the first law. Then can a country, an opposite country, can actually use force against an other country. That is what is dealt with the first law. The second law is how is war to be waged. How can I actually fight war, or how should I fight back? How should the war, what is the trajectory of war, how should the war take place, what all factors should I actually keep in mind before the war happens. So these are actually two laws that are actually placed under the UN Charter. The how, that is the second one, the how of using the force or the law of war is actually known as the International Humanitarian Law, that's IHL, International Humanitarian Law. Now this International Humanitarian Law is actually divided into two parts. International IHL is actually divided into two. One is the international armed conflict and the other is the non-international armed conflict. Now, in the case of international armed conflict, it is actually between countries. It is between countries or governments. That is the international armed conflict. Then there is a non-international armed conflict, that is where the terrorist organization are the non-state parties. Terrorist, non-state parties actually come into play. So that is how this international humanitarian law classifies the international armed conflict as well as the non-international armed conflict. So the main objective that they must use in mind is that they have to distinguish between combatants versus civilians. So remember the first law? The first law is what? The first law is what is the way of which, how can I actually give it back? The second is how I should be actually using force against that particular country. So the thing is that the first case where the thing I will be telling you is regarding the first law, Hamas actually launched a particular, like a lot of missiles, rockets, missiles against Israel. Now Israel can actually launch war or react back to that of Hamas. So because of which that first law is actually legal in the case of Israel. One particular country is actually attacking, particular organization is actually attacking Israel, means that it can defend itself or also react back. So because of it, the first law, both the cases are legal. But in the second, how should I use force? How? How should I use force? That is the particular question. How should I actually use force? In that, a major thing which you need to consider is the difference or distinction between the combatants as well as the civilians. The combatants here is Hamas and the civilians here is actually Palestine or Israelis. Okay, Palestinians or Israelis. The thing is that Hamas actually launched the war. They actually launched a lot of missiles targeting the civilian areas, because of which a lot of Israeli civilians actually died, a lot were injured, and there was a lot of casualties as such. So because of which, the second, how should I use force? That actually targeted a lot of civilians, because of which the part of Hamas actually violated the UN Charter. Whatever the actions of Hamas is actually illegal against the international laws. Now what did Israel do? Israel launched about 6,000 bombs in the Gaza Strip, also targeting a civilian area. Israel also went ahead and cut a lot of supplies, the food, the medicine, the shelter kind of supplies were also cut by Israel. And also the thing is that Israel government actually asked the citizens, Palestine citizens from the northern Gaza to migrate to the southern Gaza. And all this from the part of Israel was actually illegal. Regarding the second, how should I actually use force? Regarding the second law, both the Hamas and Israel has actually failed here. And the steps or action both taken by the Israel and Hamas has been wrong and illegal in that second stance as per the UN Charter regarding the laws of the war. The thing is that Hamas is actually a military organization. In my last class, as I have told you about the responsible state, how should Israel be actually behaving against a terrorist organization like Hamas? Hamas, we might say like this might be the last time Hamas might be actually working, because they actually gave out a lot. Even they knew that like this if they are actually putting the Palestinians and Hamas in the spotlight once again, because of it the Hamas as a terrorist organization will be targeted and fully destroyed by the Israeli force. They knew this much clearly. But the thing is that they have went ahead and targeted a lot of civilians. Even if the Palestine wasn't willing to be there, they were actually forced to become a part of the war. So because of it, the Palestinians as well as the Israelis, the innocent civilians are in the midst of the war because of the illegal actions that has been actually taken between Hamas and that of the Israeli government. So in this concern, Israel should act as a much more responsible state. It should actually look into the civilians as well as the civilian crisis, because these wars is fought by a government and a non-terrorist body. But the main thing here which we need to know that civilians are actually bearing the burden of this war. So in that we have to consider this humanitarian angle, especially focusing upon the civilians. So in this article, the thing which you need to know that this article becomes very important if you want to write your essay or ethics. You can actually put this laws of war and ideologies in your ethics paper, in your essay paper, so that you can actually give out a lot of valuable insight into this, so how much you actually understand a war. Now this kind of articles is not usually seen in any kind of books or in any kind of articles, but here you actually have got looking about the laws of war, how should the laws of the war actually work here. So like that, based on that, for ethics and essay, this actually becomes much more like important. The thing is, under what condition or when can countries use force? How is a war to be fought? That is what military actions are actually permissible. So these are the two laws which we need to consider here or to remember here. Moving on, we have the world needs to stop taking water for granted. As I have told you, October 16 is the World Food Day, and the theme that has been actually taken this year is water is life and water is food. So we will be looking at the fresh water, the groundwater reserves, and how much water is actually utilized by all the countries of the world, and what is the condition of the present water management systems, and what should we actually consider, especially in the case of agriculture. So about 60% of India's net zone areas is actually rain-fed. If you are taking whole of the country, about 60% is actually rain-fed. And out of the 60%, we actually get this 40% of food production, which means that we are depending upon the 60% of net zone area, which is actually rain-fed, to actually get a 40% of India's food, which means that India's agriculture is predominantly rain-fed kind of agriculture. We are depending upon the monsoon, we are depending upon the rainfall to come and actually give us water, so that 40% of the food security can be actually ensured. If this pattern goes away, and if there is any kind of drought situation coming in, the food security in India will be actually in crisis. So because of which our particular pattern of cultivation and agriculture is solely dependent upon, you cannot use the word solely, but dependent upon a lot of the rainfall. The irrigated agriculture accounts for 72% of the global freshwater reserve. Now this was shown in the angle of India, this is shown in the angle of world. There are some data which is actually shown in the particular article which you actually need to know. The irrigated agriculture accounts for about 72% of the global fresh water reserves that is actually here. 72% of the, out of which there is a lot of water that is actually drawn away for this agriculture as well. Now there are a lot of conditions which are actually going away. Now in India we can see that 80% of the farmers are small and marginalized. 80% of the farmers are actually small and marginalized. But there is a lot of problems happening here. You know there is climate crisis happening here. There is climate crisis happening here. Plus there is a poor water management. There is misuse and pollution. There is misuse and pollution happening. So because of which this 80% of small and marginalized farmers are actually under threat. Also 40% of the land area is barren, because of which the cultivation cannot happen in 40% of this land area. All this affects the smaller farmers. More than 80% of the farmers in India are small and marginalized, because of which this climate crisis, the poor water management as well as the misuse and pollution, everything affects the productivity or livelihood of the small farmers in India. So that is some of the important things that has been actually mentioned in the article. So let us take a look into that. Decades of poor water management, misuse and pollution, and the climate crisis have actually degraded the freshwater supplies and ecosystem in India. Now this has actually led to the vulnerability of small scale producers, like 80% of farmers. globally are specifically affected. 80% are small and marginalized farmers here. Also about 40% of the planet's total land area is actually degraded because of leaving farmers less productive land. So that is the condition currently in India and as well as the world. How the productive lands are reducing, how there is poor water management, on the top of the climate crisis, misuse and pollution, all this actually affecting the small and marginalized farmers a lot. Now recently the government of India actually gave some estimates for the year 2025 and 2020, how there will be actually reduction in the production of the coming years. If you are looking at the rice, rain-fed rice kind of cultivation, by 2050 it can actually reduce by 20%. By 2080 the current productivity level can again go up, like close to you can say about 50%. If the production is currently about 10 million tons, by the time of 2080 it will be only 5 million tons. That much reduction we can actually expect in the coming future. Now rice irrigated 3.5%. Now in 2080 that can actually reach 5%, wheat close to 19%, in 2080 that can actually reach to about 40%, everything is actually doubling here. Maize 18% could actually reach to 23% in 2080. So that is the reduction in production we can actually estimate in the coming future. What are the reasons? There is climate crisis, there is poor water management, as well as the misuse and pollution, and all this fresh water and the groundwater resources that are actually taken away. So because of all these issues there, we can actually expect a reduction in the production in the coming future. In all the major food resources, we can have rice, wheat, maize, barley, etc. All this we can actually see the kind of reduction in the production as well. The author also actually gives out a lot of this way forward, or what all measures we can actually adopt against this. So there is a full slide and a lot of measures that has been actually given in the author. No such article I have ever found a lot of such a way forward has been actually given, or ways actually have been given. Now this slide particularly it becomes important. You can write as solutions or a way forward in your mains answer as well, and this particular slide will be actually a boost to your answers. So let us look into the this. The need policies and investments actually must be promoted. What all should be actually needed? Climate smart agriculture practices. We need to adopt precise farming, smart farming kind of technology using UAVs and other kind of IoT kind of infrastructure, because of which we can actually create a smart agriculture system. Innovative and proven technologies can be actually used to increase the productivity. We need to use the water use efficiently. We need to increase the productivity. Adapt to climate change and become more resilient to shocks. As I have told you, if we are actually producing millets, these are actually more resilient to climate, and they can actually even grow in the arid climate, because of which the millets becomes one of the crops that could actually substitute this water intensive crops like rice, sugarcanes, etc. Then environmentally and socially sustainable and financially viable irrigation methods should be actually adopted, which are water saving, as well as it actually manages the water much more sustainably rather than poor water management. Then reduce the climate footprint of agriculture production is some of the other ways. Bring sanitation, drinking water supplies to rural household, efficient food and water recycling strategy. We need a proper water management, as well as the water should be actually recycled, because of it we can effectively recycle the water. Strengthen institutional arrangements and capacity for sustainable and equitable water regulation. Also incorporate climate resilient seed varieties. We need to produce a lot of genetic engineering or gene editing should be actually done to actually create a lot of resilient kind of seed varieties, especially to climate change, because of which our productivity can be actually increased even when there is a persistence of climate change that is here. So that is what the important way forward, or some of the suggestions that the author gives in the article. So from the article we know how there is actually 60% of the sown area is rainfed, out of which 40% of the production comes, especially so thus we can actually say that our agriculture is actually rain fed. Also 72% of the freshwater resources are used for irrigation all over the globe. 80% of the small and marginalized farmers are actually under threat because of poor climate crisis, poor water management, misuse and as well as pollution. 40% of all the land area are actually bare land, because of it we cannot do any kind of bigger production in those lands. So these are some of the core data that has been actually given by the author in this article. So in this World Food Day, you should actually remember the theme, the word, the food, how the water should be actually conserved, and proper water management should take place to ensure that we actually ensure the future food security and water security as well. Moving on to our next article, we have the closing the gender pay gap in the workforce. So I'll give you two scenarios of two Nobel Prize winners here. In the 1992 Nobel Prize winner was Gary Becker, and in 2023 we know the Nobel Prize winner in economics, we know her as the Claudia Golden. So we'll be actually discussing and comparing both their works here. So as per Gary Becker, they state that the reduction, like both they actually discuss about the reduction of women labor force. Both their works actually deals about the reduction of women labor force. But Gary Becker says that the reduction why the women were not participating in work was because of the household work. So the family was actually holding back the woman. So because of which there was a reduction in the labor force happening. But Claudia Golden said that it was not the family but the market that was actually holding back the woman. So here Claudia Golden actually gave us a U-shaped curve. U-shaped curve. There was an agro sector where we can actually see high participation of women in the labor force. Then came the industrial revolution sector, because of it there was actually less participation of women, and then with the service sector there was an increased employment in the increased employment and job and increased labor in the case of service sector, because of which we can actually see increased women participation. So this is the U-shaped curve that has actually been given by Claudia Golden. So according to her, it is said that during the agriculture time they could actually work from home. The agriculture setup and things happen in behind like in the backyard of their homes, because of which they could actually manage the work and life balance. They can actually work and also take care of the household as such. But when the industrial revolution came in, all the people had to actually migrate from this rural area to urban area. They couldn't set up any kind of work to life balance in the case of this urban areas, because all these urban centers was very cramped and they were situated only in particular sectors as such, and because of which all the men actually went to work and the married woman had to actually stay back in home and take care of the family. So because of which, because of the household work to take care of the family and all this work, the woman could not manage the work-life balance, and during the time of industrial revolution, the labor force participation in the case of women actually came down by a lot. So that is what actually happened in the case of industrial revolution. That is what explained by Claudia Golden. But with the increase in the service sector, they could actually work from home again, or they could actually participate in this working sector again and again. So because of it, they were actually able to manage this work-life balance. They were actually able to come back to their working field, because of which this labor force actually happened increase again. So that is both the work comparison of how both their works actually came in. So if you are looking, it was not like, the thing is that with the introduction of service sector after industrial revolution, like the employment opportunities increase, the job sectors increase, because of which the women were, like when the service sector was thriving, women were actually able to go back to work and such. And even when, like the thing is that what happening here is that men were actually considered as the working horse of the family. The thing is that work-life balance in the case of women was very much necessary. They had to take care of the career as well as their household as such. But at the same time, men didn't have an obligation of taking care of the household. They didn't have this work-life balance. They didn't need to actually look into the both household works as well as their career. They could solely focus on their career alone, because of it, the men were actually able to thrive more than the women. Even if women had a lot of education more than men, job opportunities more than men, still if they were not also willing to actually move away from the workforce, their pay was actually very much, the wage they actually get was actually pretty much very less compared to men. Even if the men and women had same education, men and women had same qualification, men and women had both the same kind of experience, the women were paid less than men. So that is what happened in this service sector age as well. So the main reason here is that work-life balance had to be actually maintained by women. They had to take care of the households, the families and the job. But this was actually not expected from that of men. They just can actually focus on their career alone. Then greedy work of the private companies. The thing is that you can work for 8 hours. You will be actually working steadily for 8 hours. For a female, because after 8 hours you might be actually go home, you have to take about the household works and such. But for a man, after 8 years, they can actually 8 hours, they can actually work for 3 hours more. Now because if they are working overtime, they will actually getting much more higher pay. They will actually get much more higher bonus, and they will actually get much more higher promotion in the recent future and such. So because of which men didn't have an obligation, men could work overtime. So these private companies will be actually wanting men, wanting people who actually work overtime, work according to their condition, such that they are greedy and they are profit oriented. Because of which they need people who actually work for them, work under their commands as such. So as I am telling you, a person can actually work for a fixed amount of time. Another person can actually work for more hours rather than the fixed amount of time. So according to you, the preferred person will be a person who will be actually working to your understanding or your wish and working for a lot of hours rather than the fixed hours. So for that person, you might be actually giving a lot of money, extra bonus, extra promotion as such. So that is what also happened during this phase. That is called the greedy work of the private companies. To increase their profit or increase their workforce and such, the thing is that they might be putting in extra hours, like 8 hours, they will be working 11 or 12 hours, but the work done of the production actually remained the same only. But still that actually led to the greedy work of the private companies. So that is what is actually stated by Claudia Goldwyn. The reason, the way forward, she has actually given that men should also actually take care of the household work, and the childcare work should also be shared between men and women, so that both the men and women will have this work-life balance, and the men will have also be looking into the household works, not just women alone. Another thing is that reshaping the work and the social environment, so that they can contribute to the development and work life of both men and women. So you have to change the employment pattern, and also men should actually be included in the household work and the childcare work, because of which we can ensure a balance in this gender gap, in the wage gap as such. So that is what is the main key points that is actually mentioned in this article. Moving on, we have the study estimate the count of UAVs. So recently the Defence Ministry actually gave out a particular committee to set out how much UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle, is actually required for the 3 wings of the defence system. So the recommendation is that they gave the recommendation to acquire about 31 MQ-9B high altitude long endurance UAVs, as well as 155 medium. They need higher and medium type of UAVs, long endurance UAVs is needed. That is what is actually stated or given by this particular study or committee. The 3 service actually use a lot of UAVs of Israeli Heron model of UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicle, is actually used by by our 3 service commissions, like the Army, Navy and the Air Force use a lot of Israeli Heron kind of UAVs, but we still need to incorporate a lot of UAVs and also weaponize them. They should actually have satellite kind of communication. So because of which, for all this, there is a lot of fund, or like close to 21,000 crores that is actually required to weaponize and increase the communication capabilities of these UAVs. So that is also stated by this, recommended by this committee. Now in June, the Defence Ministry has actually cleared the proposal to procure about 31 MQ-9B UAVs and also 15 Sea Guardians for the Navy. We discussed it in the June when we were discussing about the current affairs. We actually talked about the purchasing of this particular 31 MQ-9B UAVs, as well as the Sky Guardians and the Sea Guardians as well. These are the UAVs which will actually influence our blue economic kind of model here. So that is some of the small article that is shown. This is the 31 MQB-9 HALV UAVs. This is the long endurance kind of UAVs that is actually shown. That is what is shown in the photo. Then we have tradable green credits. So here, which we need to know what is actually trade credits and what is this tradable kind of trade credits as. So if a person, like suppose there is a person, he is actually planting about 2,000 trees. Then there is a company, they are planting about 5 lakh trees. If they are actually doing this kind of green activity for the environment voluntarily, the key term here is voluntary. If they are actually doing this voluntarily, if I am planting trees like 10,000, 20,000 trees voluntary, that is a part of me. And if I actually register within their website that I have stated that I have actually planted these many trees, they will actually come and inspect or inquire about how much I have planted on, and then they will actually give me green credits. In this case, I have planted about 2,000 trees individually, so they will give me 2,000 green credits. This company voluntarily has actually planted 5 lakh trees, because of it they will actually get 5 lakh kind of green credits. These are voluntary in nature. These are voluntary in nature. If the particular company is actually obliged by law to actually create this afforestation as per the law that has been given out, then this green credit will not be applicable to them. This is a voluntary. If a person or an entity or a court has actually stated a particular company to grow these many trees, that is actually a part of the law. Then these companies, even if they grow 5 lakh trees or 10 lakh trees or 1 crore trees, they won't actually get any kind of green credits available. This whole initiative is actually voluntary, and as this is actually voluntary, you can actually trade. This is actually based upon certificate, but there is also incentive and subsidies that is actually given with it. If you are actually going to plant a lot of trees, you might actually earn green credits. So because of which they will actually put a kind of subsidy or some incentives or some kind of value to this. So because of which this person or the company will be actually incentivized and will be promoted to create much more trees. Now they are actually voluntarily creating a lot of afforestation here. So that is basically what is known as tradable green credits. If you are obliged by law to actually create some kind of afforestation, then there won't be any green credit that is applicable. So the government has introduced a special program allowing an individual or an entity to earn green credits and trade on it into a dedicated exchange. The green credit refers to a unit of intensity provided for specific activities. Now these are actually related only 8 activities. Only 8 type of activities are actually covered under this green credit. Tree plantation, water management, sustainable agriculture, waste management, air pollution, mangrove conservation and restoration. Apart from planting trees, even if I am doing waste management or management of air pollution also, I could actually earn green credits. So this green credits is actually restricted to 8 activities only. So these are these 8 activities under which this green credit is actually restricted to. Then to get the green credit, one needs to register the activity. Once they register the activity, the people will actually come and see how much of this is real, if they have actually created this voluntarily or by law, or is this part of the enclosure which they have created on their own. So all this will be actually inquired into, and then the green credits or this traceable green credit will be actually awarded to the person. Then the notification said that the program will incentivize environmental positive action. So before this there was only certificates and there was no much use because of it, but now they are actually incentivizing this also, because of which it will actually create a lot of positive environmental friendly kind of response from the side of the people, because there is a kind of incentivization that also been added to this. The initiative aims to encourage industries, companies and other entities to meet their obligations under the law that is in force for the time being. However, the green credit is generated or procured to fulfill any obligation in compliance with any law shall not be tradable. As per if you actually create an afforestation because of any obligation or a law that you have to fulfill, then it won't be actually tradable. So that is what I have stated ago. Then to the 2036 Olympic host bid. Our Prime Minister Narendra Modi has shown an interest in opening up of 2036 Olympics in India. If such happens, then India will be the first such country to host the Olympics in total of Asia itself. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi also highlighted the significance, like after 40 years the IOC session has actually taken place in India, and our Prime Minister Modi has also showcased about India's victory against Pakistan in the World Cup in Ahmedabad on Saturday. So that is a very small article dealing about. Then Red Fort hosts India's Maiden Art. Now this will be actually hosted by our Union Cultural Ministry and will be inaugurated by our Prime Minister, and this will be conducted between December 9 to 15. Now the basic of this is actually to showcase our Indian heritage, art and culture, because of which a lot of culture, the step walls, kind of temple creations, all the art forms will be actually showcased in this area near this Red Fort, because of which we can actually learn about our cultural heritage systems of India. It is a week-long festival and you will see each day built around a unique conceptualized theme as well. The exhibition has been designed both physical and digital forms for the immense experience and accompanied by interactive installations. So you can actually see this. If you are in Delhi, you can actually go and watch this. It will actually help us learn or revise whatever we have learned. It actually talks about the Indian heritage, arts and culture ago. Then moving on to our last topic, we have the bid for traditional medicine in the whole list. Now you see our Ayurveda is actually used by a lot, and in India we have actually established the use of Ayurveda, and this is promoted by the Ministry of Ayush. So recently the Chinese traditional medicine has actually come into the WHO list as well. So India is actually putting its bid so that the Ayurveda will also actually come into this list. The Chinese traditional medicine is now used by China, South Korea, Japan and such. So this Ayurveda has been in place for a long of time, and in India also we are actually using a lot of Ayurveda now. So India is actually on a bid to actually seek this traditional medicine to be added in the WHO essential medical list. So that is a small article that has been actually been dealing about. So that is the important news from yesterday's and today's 15th October and 16th October. I will be actually coming again on Wednesday with the current affairs of 17th and 18th October. So see you. I hope you have actually understood every concept. Please, if you like, watch. If you actually like the video, please like and subscribe. Thank you and have a nice day. I will see you again on Wednesday. Thank you.